There's been quite a bit of stuff that's happened on Helldivers 2 recently. I guess I'm going to start off with one of the most basic things. The Superstore got reworked, so then everything in the Superstore has been opened up and you can get anything in the Superstore right now. You just go into the acquisitions tab, go to the Superstore and just bam, it's all there for you to get. But you will still have to pay super credits. I personally hated the fact I had to wait until the next Superstore refresh to get something, but now that it's all there, it's just easy for me to get whenever I want now. To get to the bee's knees. The business of the... Also, by the way, did you know that bee's knees is just business, but just exaggerated? Bee's knees, business. I learned that today through TikTok, so thanks TikTok. Onto the business of the video. There was a Q&A that Johan Pilestedt held over on Reddit. But not on the Helldivers 2 Reddit, no. On the Helldivers Unfiltered subreddit, which people were saying was really brave of him to do, and especially to be able to take everything that everyone was saying at him, because there were a lot of downvotes, a lot of negative comments and stuff, but there were still questions that got answered, and not having it in the echo chamber of the Helldivers subreddit and letting it be held on a completely communal subreddit would benefit getting a more communal response. So without any further ado, here's the Q's and the A's of the Johan Pilestedt Q&A. Some of these have been simplified because some of them were super duper long, but I'm just highlighting the Q's and the A's to everything. If you can say, are there any current plans to expand upon progression systems, whether implemented already or not? In addition to the above, a method for spending samples would be greatly appreciated by long-time players with nothing else to use them on. So if possible as well, can you say if there's anything in the works regarding allowing us to spend these samples we've had for years now? Pilestedt responded with, hey, there are multiple plans and discussions around improving the existing systems such as progression, weapon customization, DSS, etc. Unfortunately, we have been pushing hard to meet all what we see as the expectation on content for each new big update, which unfortunately means that the team is forced to down prioritize what we already have in favor of novelty. Examples of this is the critique we received from Cyberstand where 3 new enemies and a new faction wasn't enough. I think we could be better at looking at improving systems for those of you that are super experienced, but it is a smaller percent of users than those that are still retained by the mid-game. I and the team are passionate about the hardcore players, but we are constantly navigating this and we take so much input from the community, data and internal feedback. Please let me know if you need more or less of an answer. On a personal note, that we get capped resource-wise should have been fixed a long time ago, but see my previous answer. I feel like this is a good answer because it, well, answers the question, and it also tells everyone that the team of developers do want the game to be better, but the fact that they also need to push more content forward in the game so then the story of Helldivers 2 develops, as that's what it is. It's a live service game. So it has to constantly get updated with new content, but if you drop the content, then player interest drops as well, because, and I'll admit, during the 60-day plan where Arrowhead was doing all the optimization patches and stuff, I didn't really play Helldivers 2 because there wasn't going to be anything new added, and there's not going to be much development in the story other than major orders, which I like Helldivers 2 for the major orders and the intuition it drives to the player base to have the players carry the story forward. But if they're just going to be focusing on not the story and instead bettering the game, as me, the type of player I am, and what I play Helldivers 2 for, I don't particularly enjoy that over being able to play and experience the story of Helldivers 2. And I guess it's going to be really hard to balance between both halves of the player base that hates the developers and the player base that supports the developers. Specifically the developers that are developing the game to run and perform better. Not the content developers, not the story developers, the game developers. I want to add one more thing in regards to progression, because I see this coming up quite a bit, and I think I should clarify what I meant. When I answered questions about progression, I was mostly talking about the short term. Progression is very systemic. It touches rewards, resources, difficulty, player motivation, unlock pacing, balance, and long-term goals. Changing it is not isolated, and if done poorly, it can create new problems in systems that already exist. That is not meant as an excuse, and it is not meant as progression does not matter or we are not thinking about it. It was meant as meaningful progression takes time to get right and we are working on it. I do think progression is one of the areas where Helldivers 2 has the most room to improve. That is clear from how many players have reached caps where resources and rewards stop feeling meaningful. I should have been clearer about that, sorry. With the progression, I don't really see a way that it can really be expanded without giving some people an advantage over others. People are already level 150, and so I feel like implementing proper progression where everyone's treated equally, people might have to have their levels downgraded or samples reset or something happening to make them proportionally more scalable to everyone else's average, so then the people who've been playing the game for 2 years don't immediately just unlock all the new stuff instantly because they've played for so long and then complain that there's not enough progression again. But that's obviously going to come with a lot of outcry and backlash from the community because they don't want to lose their stuff, but Arrowhead can't implement new stuff and keep it fair for everyone if they don't take away some stuff. So I don't know how Arrowhead's going to do it or even if they're going to do it properly, and then again, there isn't really any proper way to do it because everyone's going to be disadvantaged in the end because everyone's going to have to work longer to get stuff that they want more, and people that have already skipped the line to go ahead are going to be handicapped in unlocking that new stuff faster. But really, it's the only fair and balanced way to have everyone level up equally so everyone can be equally as powerful in roughly the same amount of time, so then everyone doesn't get dried up from the new stuff that they got for progression again. I don't mind sitting at 132 with me still missing 2 ship modules. I'm still having fun. I'm still having fun diving down with what I've got and using it against what's coming at me. That's just me. There's someone out there who's completely opposite to me, who's not happy with how they have basically nothing and they're not satisfied with the game at all and they hate everything about it. But that also highlights how diverse the community is, and again, how hard it is to cater to everyone's needs and expectations. Is there a reason that balance patches to the less used stuff are so few and far between? Like the Orbital Precision Strike, the Orbital EMS, and the Sterilizer. Why can't we have minor number buffs to lots of things every patch? This is a big answer, so strap in. This is a result of too big a game, too many variables, scenarios, and potential outcomes. Really, this is a path we went down in balance before release, where we started balancing weapons not onto a generic core or themselves, but also against individual foes. Helldivers as designed wasn't supposed to be a balanced game, not like Dota, StarCraft, World of Warcraft, etc. It was supposed to be an immersive experience with rules that players get to explore. But to get to the game into a fun state, we late decided to balance the game, and this has continued since, and now is the expectation of the community. The unfortunate truth here is that it is way too complex to balance versus the team size and tools we have. The designers are working their asses off doing their best to achieve that balance. We could hire more, but balance is also a one-man game. For example, the fewer we are, the easier it is. More people don't help. And unfortunately, our quality assurance doesn't catch these issues, and when they do, they aren't prioritized high enough. We have been pushing hard as of late to achieve operational excellence, which means to deliver great builds without bugs on time. We believe this will, in the long run, let us free up time to be better at balancing. I know this answer doesn't address the specifics, and I actually wouldn't know. This is specific to the teams, and they tried their hardest working around the challenging situation they are in. I feel like this answer was a real roundabout way of answering the question, but I get what Pilestedt is saying. Pilestedt's saying that the dev team isn't big enough to test in-house, and the quality assurance just doesn't pick up on the fact that stuff isn't balanced enough, and they don't prioritize that as high as all the other bugs and stuff. And by prioritizing other bugs and glitches and performance issues, they are able to release updates that have less glitches, less bugs, and less performance issues than they would have. And by prioritizing 8 of their quality assurance testers saying that this gun's too overpowered and the other 500 saying nothing's wrong with it, it'll be hard for them to actually deal with that and actually test it in a reliable way against a wide range of enemies. A solution potentially for this that I'm thinking off the top of my head, have a community poll somewhere in the game. To the people that actually play the game, if they play with the weapons long enough, then they can do a weapon review of it and say, like a quick quiz, does this gun do too much damage? Does this gun have too much ammo? Does this gun not have enough? And then ultimately, when it reaches a stage when, as a community, we can agree, yeah, this gun's kind of overpowered, we can start voting that to be down less and not just go with the herd saying, yes, make every single gun overpowered so then our game is completely easy. Because if the game's easy, that takes out all the fun. This is continuing on from the last question. Regarding balance patches, I don't have detailed information on each weapon. However, the team frequently reviews balance based on usage data, which shows us how often different items are used. While we can track this data, it can be challenging to access the actual power of each weapon due to the numerous situations and variations in gameplay. There's also a difference between the effectiveness of an item and how effective it feels to players. Sometimes we identify outliers in efficiency through our data analysis, and we try to account for those. However, it can be difficult to determine if the reactions are based on personal preference or actual efficiency, especially with items that may be considered fun but are intended to be highly viable. Additionally, the intense backlash that often follows balance adjustments has created an environment where every change is heavily scrutinized. It leads to hesitance in making adjustments as they might spark controversy. I believe we should be more courageous in making changes, but since team morale is significantly influenced by community feedback, we proceed with caution. This really made me realize something. I need to investigate how I prioritize balance adjustments. I think there's a way for us to improve this to better align with the community's needs. There is so much information out there and often conflicting opinions on what the outliers are on balance, but we should also be able to make adjustments based on what is commonly talked about. I feel like this answer kind of sheds light on how impactful the community is. If we hate a gun, then we're not going to use it, and based on publicly accessible knowledge on how often weapons are picked, Arrowhead can then use that to nerf or buff some weapons. That's probably why Arrowhead in fact shadow nerfed the Coyote, because as soon as that Coyote came out, every other weapon's pick rate just dumped, which Arrowhead doesn't want. Arrowhead wants there to be a variety of good weapons for people to choose that are usable in a variety of scenarios. I like the Stoker. It's a one-handed SMG that has a flamethrower built into it. It's just really tactile for almost every enemy except for the automatons, that of which I use the pacifier, because let's be honest, the pacifier is most powerful with the automatons. Is discussions with armor customization on the table, mixing and matching parts, or at least transmog? Transmog meaning being able to customize armors to look like weapons and to match the aesthetic of weapons. So if you have a completely yellow sniper rifle, being able to customize your armor to roughly resemble a completely yellow sniper rifle. Weapon customization. Are you planning to go deeper with it? I like the system, but it currently feels bare bones with some weapons. Like, a lot more could be done with them. Or will there be more different weapons that are just modified versions of older weapons that are available through Warbonds? Ship modules. It's been well over a year since we had any added. Any more being worked on? Will there be more endgame progression? Pilestedt responded with perks or transmog. I think we need to update our original direction as the system has exploded. It is beyond what is originally intended, basically giving a small passive and being thematic to the armor. This is, however, a discussion not happening right now. Weapon customization was deemed not as significant in resolving the lack of progression, but I personally think we just need more of it, but it is currently down prioritized. Ship modules. Big news in the future. Can't say more. Endgame. Oh, you sweet endgame summer child. But really, this is our Achilles heel. Most of you hardcore players want it, but it satisfies a small portion of the player base, and we currently are focusing on the broad effect. There are things in plans, but they are some ways off. It really comes down to time. Not enough time. I think we're going to start off with the most obvious thing, endgame. With Pilestedt saying, oh, you sweet summer child. I think that's him saying that the endgame of Helldivers 2 is extremely much more complicated than it seems, and it's something that Helldivers 2 is going to take a long time to build up to, because it's meant to go on for 7 years, as Baskinator said a while back, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure about the 7 years, but I know that Baskinator said something about that. And that there is no plans to have this game just be on for 4 years and then throw it away. It's going to be a long-term thing that's going to keep updating and evolving the story throughout it. And so by Pilestedt saying, oh you sweet summer child, I think that's him saying that we are way far off from the end of Helldivers 2. And ultimately the end game of Helldivers 2. Or he could be saying that the end game is a much more complicated system than it might seem to the player. That finding ways to find an end to Helldivers 2 will have to ultimately come at the end of the story of Helldivers 2. But the only way for there to be an end game would literally be the end of the story, because that's how Helldivers 2 is pivoted and how it works. And that all we can get as extra content in the future is new enemies, new developments in the story, and new weapons, new warbonds, new vehicles, new armors, new weapon customization, new skins, new planets, new objectives, stuff like that. Will we actually see community-driven events again, like stratagem rewards for major orders, or is all future content going to be warbonds and stratagems just given to us without build-up? We are working on creating a more interesting dynamic between the community, your actions, and what the game masters do. In a perfect world, we would have an articulated rule set that allows for fair play between the enemy forces and where you guys could surprise us in many ways. We are working on this, and over the next years, you will have more power in the Galactic War. We want to diversify how the game is played, so our worst case is just rinse and repeat. Or, well, worst case is us squandering the love of Helldivers. But, well, I guess second worst. Edit. As rightly pointed out, I didn't answer the first question. Basically, yes, there will be rewards for events in the Galactic War. We haven't made any decision to stop doing it, and it hasn't been a priority. Same as we've done in the past. When? I don't know, since I'm not directly involved in the Galactic War planning. I don't have much else to say other than I just can't wait for some more stuff that I get from completing a major order. And the fact that Pilestedt is foreshadowing that Super Earth will actually finally, at one point, get the upper hand over the Illuminate Terminids and Automatons. When will that happen? I don't know. How will that happen? I don't know. Will it happen? Apparently yes. This person sent a really long question, so I cropped it down a bit. Even at this late hour, will Arrowhead commit to delaying the Exo Experts Warbond, pulling the mechs out and restructuring it to be in line with what the majority of the players are wanting? Armored vehicles belong in major orders, and such rewards for going ham against a faction. Also, will you hand down to the team a directive to stop with the fixes or solutions being sold back to us only through paid content? And finally, is there any feedback or solutions you would take from a player or players that could initiate a pause from the current direction of content the team is working on? Pilestedt responded with this essay. Feel free to pause and read it, but I'm going to read off the answers to the questions. No, we won't pull the mechs from the Warbond. You can still grind to purchase each Warbond, and we see through the data that most do. Our rule is that we shouldn't put things that are necessary to play in the Warbonds, and neither of the mechs is. I know we've slipped up a couple times, and please call it out. I will discuss this with the team and see what approach to take. I think this comes down to solving a core issue rather than limiting what kind of perks and content is released, and ensuring there are ways to play around it. I think this AMA has opened my eyes, and it was my hope, to the grievances that you have. I understand that behind harsh criticism, name-calling and other things, there is frustration stemming from the love of the game, and the feeling that it is being mismanaged. The reason why I wanted to do this AMA is that I was so frustrated, and it really hurt seeing a project born out of love for players, creating a belief that we at Arrowhead are more focused on value extraction than on making the best game possible. I think my biggest takeaway here is that there are so many valuable points, but since much of it is worded so harshly, there are so many conspiracies. For instance, that the team of 130 and more in Stockholm has abandoned the game. The subreddit is discounted as being too fringe, but engaging with you all I hope proves that it's just hardcore players with a lot of frustration. And I get that there'd be frustration with Helldivers 2. There's many different aspects and many different ways to play and many different aspects to Helldivers 2. And the ways that people play it is all completely different. There's people that follow the new meta and whatever the best strategy is for everything. There's people that play it with one specific loadout for everything because it's the best. That would also fall under meta, I guess. And there's people that also decide, I'm not going to play it anymore because everything's changed and it's all different now and it's not fair. And I guess you kind of settle into your own category even if you don't align with any of those. And that varies per player, even where you started the game and what your first faction was, what weapons you like the most. It all varies. And I respect Pilestedt for coming to the Unfiltered Helldivers channel to get a really broad perspective on the outcry that the community feels, rather than just going to the regular Discord or the Helldivers subreddit, but instead going to a subreddit led entirely by the community that doesn't necessarily praise Arrowhead for everything they do, but also gives fair and harsh criticism when it's needed. But me saying that doesn't mean that I excuse all the criticism, because frankly some stuff that Arrowhead is criticized for is a bit overblown. It's overinflated and overinfatuated, because what better to do than to be angry at Arrowhead, because if you like Arrowhead in any way for anything they did, then you're a glaze diver. And bringing names into this as well is just childlike, really. We all love the game, and if you don't love the game, then don't play it. If you do love the game, people have different opinions and different reasons for why they play the game that might not be the same as yours, but just respect that everyone's different, everyone plays differently, everyone acts different, but we're all playing for the same common goal, to fight against aliens. Why the mechs in the Warbond? Why not make them free and give us an actual mech-oriented stuff like a repair tool, a mech resupply backpack, and a better mech-oriented booster instead? No offense, but a lot of people want mech customization, and it just feels like a monetization ploy to divide stuff up into bite-sized chunks while only fixing issues when they go up for sale. Because it's variations on existing equipment, so we view it the same as adding 2 shotguns to a Warbond. We already have 2 mechs in the core game, and with this, if you like mechs, get this Warbond to get more variation in your mech play. Mech customization is still not off the table. And to me that makes sense. A lot of people hated this comment from Pilestedt because they disagreed with it vehemently. Mechs and adding more mechs shouldn't be a Warbond to the game, but Warbonds are really just DLCs, if you think about the DLCs that are in the game that you don't have to download and you can just unlock by playing the game. But regardless, there is already 2 mechs that you get for basically free by just regularly playing the game and using your requisition slips, and there's a tank and there's tons of other weapons that you can use, and as we know, really the Warbonds are to tailor to specific play styles, and you can get multiple Warbonds or just one Warbond. Like, some people only use stuff from Democratic Detonation and some people only use stuff from Control Group. It all varies based on how you play, and I feel like marketing the mechs as something that's extra unlockable, just like everything else, like the Epoch, or like the Warp Pack, or like the Explosive Crossbow, the Ultimatum, it's all different. Some of it feels like it should be in the base game, but that's why it's in a Warbond, because not everyone uses all the same stuff. Me personally, I love the mechs. I love the sentries. So you bet when they come in with a sentry Warbond, I'm getting that straight away, because I love being able to throw down sentries and they defend me while I defend them, and it's just amazing having something that's more powerful than me, that can do more stuff better than me. And with this mech Warbond, I can relate to the fact that it should be something that's extra and shouldn't just be taken for granted and given to everyone at once. Because if someone comes in your game with all mechs and they never call anything else down, they have no offensives, then that locks in their playstyle to needing those mechs. But if you only have 2, then you have to pick 2 other stratagems to actually go into a mission, so then it expands your way of using stratagems that are offensive, defensive, their supplies, or their weapons, backpacks or vehicles. But by letting everyone start off with 4 mechs can just have people be locked into using mechs for the rest of the game, and that doesn't let people explore the different aspects of Helldivers 2. Never lets them try different Warbonds and just have them go, yep, big strong robot, me walking robot, me invincible, robot broken, get another robot. That's not fun. It might be fun in the moment, but it's not fun for Helldivers 2. It fuels a toxic use of, you have to get this Warbond to be the best at this game, which it should never be. I haven't unlocked all of Democratic Detonation because I've already found my playstyle using a mishmash of other Warbonds, because it's what I align with the most and what's best for me. Because I didn't get sucked into everyone saying, you need Democratic Detonation first. I got Control Group first, because it was better for how I play. If I picked Democratic Detonation first, I might have never been where I am now. I might have been just terrible and just picking what everyone says I should pick and following the herd like a sheep. But if Democratic Detonation works for you, that's great. But just for my playstyle and how I've set myself up, it doesn't. Why do fixes that directly affect gameplay and the enjoyability of the game, like flash mob clipping, which I know, as of the upcoming patch, is supposedly fixed, take so long to get applied? Whereas fixes for harmless fun bugs, exiting ship at evacuation, or inventive solutions to problems like charger leg, are patched almost immediately. Most of the time it depends on how easy it is to fix, and what availability there is on a specific team or discipline. So with the charger leg, the exiting ship at evac were much easier than the flesh mob clipping, or it needed a type of skill that was occupied with other tasks. We can do better here to up prio gameplay affecting bugs, which I feel like Arrowhead should. Ahead of stuff that's fun for the players and like enjoyable. Like, I wouldn't mind extracting out of the ship, even if it made no sense, even if it meant I didn't complete extraction. Alright, if you made it so I didn't complete extraction and we got a debuff from that, but I could still exit the ship on accident, for example, That would have been great. I would have loved that. That would be so fun. And they should prioritize instead fixing bugs that actually affect players' gameplay and of actually how their game performs. I shared a bug with Arrowhead where the illuminate aggravators would, when they are charging ahead, if they went through a building, none of the buildings would break. But as soon as they stopped the charging animation, all the buildings would break at the exact same time, causing a lot of buildings to break if you're in a city map, for example, and a lot of lag. I have a 5060 in my PC, and it caused my frames to drop and borderline crash. 2 people that were in the squad disconnected, and the host only didn't because their game had hung, and then they eventually disconnected, and then I got put into a solo game because of that bug. It literally nearly killed the entire game. I haven't seen that happen again or had an instance of it happening yet because I haven't really played on the Illuminate much, but I hope it's patched. But feel free to test and tell me in the comments if it's not patched. How much is weapon customization going to be expanded further upon, if at all? I mean, will all the weapons that don't have as such attachments as others do eventually get them? And if we will see brand new attachments like suppressors or different types of ammunition? Yes, it will. I do not have a timeline, but it may be a part of improving the progression. How exactly is to be decided, but several basic things such as suppressors, UGL, etc. would make the most sense. Ammo we have built, but it's not decided because of how hard balancing would be. Holy shit, I'm gonna have a suppressed diligent sniper that I can snipe stuff across the map with. Yes! But all jokes aside, imagine having a suppressor on the flamethrower on the Stoker. Ah, I'm joking. Alright. This looks great. I love this because I hate how the fact that I think the constitutions just have no attachments put on it, because I feel like that constitution is meant to be the lonely child of all the weapons, because it just is kind of the worst weapon overall for anything. This gives me a lot of hope that anyone's favorite gun is going to be a lot more powerful once they introduce these weapon customizations. Maybe they'll introduce these new weapon customizations along with a weapon feedback system or a balancing system or something to give reviews on what Arrowhead adds to the game. Again, directly into the game. I want these reviews to happen in Helldivers 2 and not in the Discord or on the Reddit, because there's fans of Helldivers 2 that could have never played the game after an enemy they played against got patched or something got nerfed or buffed and have no idea about what they're talking about. But if they're actually playing the game, using the gun, and after a mission or something they get a quick quiz that they can easily dismiss or easily fill out, and then they can get that submitted to Arrowhead to get an in-game response based off of a pre-built set of questions, that would be fantastic. Will there be an improvement of communication? Not just Discord and Reddit, but blogs and vlogs on the official website? We have an initiative to do better. This includes streams, Q&As, and other things to be more close to y'all. Do you have an answer for why so many changes, specifically nerfs, aren't mentioned in patch notes? A second, less important question, are there any plans for the Bureau terminal? Yes, I do. It's a multi-pronged answer, it depends on these factors. Missing tracking of what was done. When you balance things, you turn a lot of knobs and you have to take care to note down or extract later. Complex interactions between systems. The game is very dynamic and one set of inputs can generate a multitude of outputs, which means a fix to one system might buff or nerf a specific weapon that uses that system. Take an incendiary weapon for instance. It might be completely unchanged, but if the burning status is nerfed a little bit, all fire weapons will be affected. Bugs and performance being fixed may change mechanics a bit, so for instance, optimizing the projectile system might change the drag calculation a bit, and therefore the speed the projectile travels at, which does change the balance some, affecting some or all weapons. Communication and planning mishaps. For instance, a balance change might be slated for a later update, but sometimes we might do improper handovers to those that put together the patch notes. J. This makes a lot of sense really. When you change one thing that's going to affect how one weapon damages something, like with the incendiary example, it's hard to be able to balance that accordingly without being aware that it actually even happened. So what I think Arrowhead should do is implement something into their engine designer or something so that when something's changed, like in Unreal Engine, when you change something in Unreal Engine, it points you to what was changed, what was affected, and what you've deleted, moved, renamed, or copied. So I think Arrowhead should have that for the Stingray game engine that they're using, how heavily modified it is, to just go over quickly what was changed and even copy it to a log. So then When they're about to push an update and they want to release the patch notes, everyone can go through all their logs and see if something was left unchecked or unpatched or something. Why are the devs so adamant on making the game they want and not the game their players deserve? This is a big message, so you can pause to read it or listen to me read it. This is a great question. There is no one truth to what players want. It's many millions of individuals with varying expectations on what they want out of the game. If you really drill into it, everyone has nuances or great difference in what they want the game to be. Some appreciate the game for its arcade fun action, others love it for the challenge, some love it for the teamwork, and others play it solo. Some love the lore and narrative, others just want to shoot bugs in the face. Helldivers is multifaceted, and in this, therein lies the challenge with satisfying everyone. What's important is how we align the studio in preserving what is the core of Helldivers, but everyone at the studio has a differing view of this as well. Especially when new team members join the team, how they are onboarded, and to what the intent of the game is. Helldivers, at its core, and always was during development, a third-person horde shooter with mil-sim fundamentals. But at surface level, this seems like a basic horde shooter, but the depth comes from a simulated shooter. I mean, with a change of tone and more hardcore balancing, Helldivers could become a contemporary hardcore shooter. How the team stays true to its core is the fundamental and how it's developed. But all games slip over time. Looking at you, originally hardcore SWAT game that now has cartoon characters in it. Games do evolve, especially when teams change and grow, and it's up to direction to set the boundaries, which is way more complex when there's 200 people working on the game versus 60. But there's no one right answer here. Whichever way the game expands, some will be left disappointed and others will embrace it. Which you can see with every game. Every game changes some way for the worse or some way for the better. Minecraft. A lot of stuff has changed from Minecraft since Notch, the original creator, got booted out of it. It was kind of messed up. Since then, Minecraft has added a lot of stuff that people loved and hated. One of the most notable being the glow squid. And in the recent update, sulfur cubes. In the recent update we got one new mob and some new blocks and a little biome that just makes caves a bit more annoying and stinky. And people are still having fun with it. People that like the update are playing the update and people who don't aren't. People who can play on older versions, people might not even ever experience it because they just like playing on Hypixel. But with Helldivers, there isn't really a liberty to play at any game version you want. You have to play at the most recent one or you can't play at all. And so that's why people tend to leave the game. And then people go on to other games that they are more familiar with. Games that tickle their fancy a bit more than Helldivers 2 does. It's down to how you like playing the game. If you don't like playing Helldivers 2, feel free to go and play another game. It's what happens, some stuff changes, but you played it for the duration that you liked it, and if you didn't, then there's that 2-hour refund that Steam gives you. But with every game there's updates and changes that can change the entire definition of a game within a matter of 2 updates. And I guess rolling with the punches is kinda if you stick with a game or not. This question was also sent, but I feel like it doesn't really have any specific questions, so I'm just going to read the answer, as I feel like the answer highlights questions more than the actual post. So many great questions, a lot of specifics I don't have unfortunately as the team is now so large. Technical debt. Operational excellence and release quality is our top priority. We are working extremely hard on ensuring that updates are held to high standards. I agree fixing the multitude of bugs is key. Some have been in the game way too long. Expansion on weapon customization, armor customization, it will be improved and expanded in the future, but we first need to resolve the debt that we have and keep releasing updates to the game. Galactic War, yes, we are still working on improving it. The team has some really cool ideas for how the Galactic War will evolve, but running the war is taking up a lot of time right now. Mechs or vehicles. We see these as any other stratagem. Even though they feel more significant, they are really no different from an autocannon or turret in our philosophy. Stratagems always should have overlapping effects, which means that there should always be plenty of flavor options to tackle each challenge. Warbond token as a level reward is an interesting idea. Let me run it by the team. Samples. Yes, I'm a bit ashamed that we don't have more sample usage. Balance I have answered elsewhere. I am over the moon to see that Pilestedt is actually going to be talking by the team about a Warbond token, rather than just have a compensation for something that was broken and only a limited amount of people got it. I feel like having it as a level reward for getting to level 100 and 150 or 50, just giving people 3 of them would be amazing. Just to let people have something to work forward to other than just the next level. because ultimately leveling up in Helldivers 2 doesn't really give you anything else except when you're at the start of the game and lets you level up to get to different difficulties. Because if you can buy everything at level 1 with money, or just be given everything, like all the currencies and all the Warbond medals and all the super credits somehow, and you can just unlock everything in the game without needing level progression to unlock certain things, I think that that's crap. I don't think that should be a thing. I think some stuff should be locked behind levels so then people can work towards it, you know, to not lock people out of it, but work towards it and inspire people to play the game more often than just, oh, I've got to hop on for my weekly super credit grind. As a newer player, it can feel pretty overwhelming to see the sheer volume of content there is available to unlock at the start. Are there any plans to lessen this hurdle for newer players? I've had some friends join the game and lose interest after seeing how much time they'd have to put in to play with all the fun toys. Yes, we are doing an update to the first time user experience for Tour. We saw the same issue in Helldivers and Magicka, but never fixed them as the lifetime of the game wasn't as long as Helldivers 2. This also applies to where we are in the Galactic War and what has happened. Kinda need a last time on Helldivers 2, but we will see what the team comes up with. I feel that the question didn't really get answered here, but I get where Pilestedt is coming from, right? The question was, how are you going to be combating the scalability of how easy it is to acquire stuff? But I feel like doing that is going to kill people's interest in the game really quickly if they can play the game for a day or two and unlock mostly everything fun about the game and then not do anything else with the game at all. I think that that was more of the issue of the question rather than how are you going to introduce players to the game and actually have them embrace what the play style or the way that you play Helldivers 2 and the amount of time realistically you'll have to invest into the game rather than a rough estimate based on all the unlockable stuff. I want to ask, why do we always reach this point? And why do we always end up in situations like this, like a cycle? Why can it not be prevented? I think this is, at its core, a combination of not testing enough and that the most experienced in the community are far better at the game. We are aware and are actively working to resolve this. We need each update to be thoroughly vetted. It is kind of a cycle, isn't it? Just like the water cycle, we just keep coming back to this point where we're so back, it's so over. I hate to use that meme because it's used so much, but it is true. It keeps happening over and over again, over basically every month. And then an update comes out, people test the update, and it's cooled down for a bit. People are super hyped for the update. And then every 6 months, we're like so hyped for like the Illuminate and everything. And it's just, I don't see an end in sight, really. Any plans on endgame progression? Why hasn't weapon customization been brought to sidearms and stratagems? Why do bugs that benefit the player have been fixed so fast while others who have been pretty unrealistic take several months to fix? Progression is high up on my list, and something that I keep coming back to when talking to the team. Really, my personal priority list would be quality of life, bugs, tweaking, reviewing old stuff and bringing it up to the standard of newer equipment, progression, more things to spend your resources on, raised level cap and associated rewards, refresh of the core game, dynamic missions, objectives, new locations and challenges in the core experience, getting around the staleness. Performance has a never-ending chore that keeps on giving. We will never fix performance, but we need to be in a state where it doesn't degrade. There is no deliberate lying, just a complexity. The coyote, for instance, was never changed, but its damage is tied to the fire and burning status effect, which was updated, and herein lies the problem. While we said that the coyote wouldn't be changed, the result of tweaking the fire system means that directly the coyote was affected, even though the alteration was not intended to hit the coyote. So the question at that point is, do we now never change the burning effect balance? I think this also comes to the heart of how perilous it is to say anything, because anything can be brought up later and pointed to, but in reality, development is complex. There are so many desires, wants, requests, constraints, and an infinite amount of data, that it's hard to say anything for certain if you are afraid of backlash. Everyone at the studio is here to make a great game, enjoyed by millions every month. Hearing these answers gives me like a very different perspective from a player to how the developers actually look at the game. It is hard to change anything now. If they change the way that electrical damages like the automatons, for example, it's going to affect other weapons being affected by the And really all that Arrowhead can do is add new things for them to tweak later on more specifically by weapon or stratagem by stratagem, and not specifically attribute of the game by attribute of the game, like more stims or stim duration, because that will affect the stim pistol and other boosters and perks. And I really hope progression does get more, because I'm approaching the end of the game where I reach level 150 and that's it. From the client side, from the player side, you reach 150, unlock all the stratagems, all the warbonds, then that's all. You have nothing else to do besides just shoot mindlessly at aliens that come and try and kill you because you're trying to take over their home planets. And I feel like Arrowhead is also kind of trapped because they're using Stingray, a really old game engine that isn't officially supported anymore, so they have to customize the hell out of it. And that's going to build them up more and more, as they always say, technical debt, which is just inevitable with any old game engine. But because Arrowhead started developing Helldivers 2 so late by using the same engine, saying, we'll change the engine, yeah, we'll change the engine, but we're working on it right now. We'll change the engine, yeah, we'll work on it. And then by the time it's the release date, they haven't changed the engine. They've mentioned before that they've dug themselves into their own pit of technical debt because they just haven't decided to change an engine while they were developing the game. And now that the game's released, it's going to take an incredible amount of work to rework everything into a new game engine. Even if it's Unreal Engine, Unity, hell, even if they use Blender game engine, it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of effort to rebuild everything that they have now. They're going to have to migrate all the performance fixes, and they're going to have to relearn an entire new engine, and they're going to have to teach that to all their 200 plus staff. It's just going to be hell for them to do, and I feel like Arrowhead is just going to have to do what they've got now and dig a tunnel through that pit to reach the surface. But enough of me yapping and rambling on and on and on. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, or what you think about specific answers from Pilestedt. It's ultimately anyone's game, anyone can play it how they want, but Arrowhead, at the end of the day, ultimately has a decision on where the story goes, what's added to the story, and when stuff is added to the story. As long as you can find a way that you enjoy the game, glitches or not, check my other videos, that's what matters. But again, feel free to comment below what you guys think about all this Q&A, and that if Pilestedt should do more Q&As like this on un-Arrowhead moderated subreddits or on other unofficial channels like the Discord and the Helldivers subreddit and their own support forums. Because I think this was a great way to get a different, varied, completely random assortment of feedback and influence on how Arrowhead should change Helldivers for the better, or how they've changed it for the worst. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.